Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me have your attention, please. All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead, take out your notes. We're going to be jumping right back into the Indo-Pakistan wars. Got that? Some of the questions is coming up as far as like Google Classroom. You all have to be on Google Classroom. Hello. Not only the at-home students who are getting today's video, right? Landon's peering at them from his little perch there, as well as you guys. Now, the question is, like, what do you need to do as far as the Google Classroom things? I mean, I tell you everything that's going on in here, but I also post it there. When I post videos, I'm posting all the stuff that we do in here. So I got one uploaded from the first day of class, you guys. So the at-home crew can watch what we were doing in here last Thursday, I guess it was, Thursday. At times, I will also be posting video for the not in class day. So for you guys, it will be the blue day tomorrow. For others, it will be like the green day right now. Okay? I don't have any, I'm trying to think, because I've done for different things in different classes, but I don't think I have any of those yet. When we get back to the Cold War stuff, you know those Cold War videos that I love using, those documentaries? Uh-huh. We're going to be posting those online, and so part of what your homework is for this class is to watch that. Now, I teach what's going on with that video ahead of time. I did that last year as well. If you chimed in on a regular basis, as you were supposed to do as diligent students, to my lectures followed up by the video, then that's kind of going to be the way it'll be going there. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, now, look up on the board. I posted that on Google Classroom as well. You guys have a due date. I'll work on something specific for you, Satara. Okay? You're going to get a special one, right? Because unlike these folks had last semester to prepare a first draft of their IA, and they turned it in, okay? I'm having everybody turn in a revised IA, and there's the due date. For you, it's Friday the 18th of September. Next week, listen carefully, all right? And this is something I put out at the end of last semester, and I've said as well in here. I got everyone's first draft, and some people did a really good first draft in spite of the circumstances of everything going on. Some of you, and you know who you are, and if you're not really sure, then let the eye contact be an additional help to determine that you are among these people who, okay, so you got that? And because otherwise it would be, you would know that from not so great a first draft score. Okay? It's okay. It's all right. So here's the deal. Shh. Do your best to fix it up, because if you fix it up good enough, I'll actually set up a meeting with you. And I won't tell you to fix it again, because I'm not going to have a meeting with you if if the draft that you give me is in not that great of a shape to begin with, because I want to focus on ways to make minor positive adjustments to your draft. Because what are you going to be turning in to me by the end of this semester? Your final one. Okay, so hear me out as well. Probably, next time you guys come in here on Thursday, I'll give some general tips, and this is going to apply to the folks at home too, because some of the folks at home are also in this position. They need to really spruce up their first draft. Okay? So I'll give some general hints as far as like, it's kind of like the initial training reminder. You guys all had the initial training. I did the initial training when we were physically here. I know, because we did it at the beginning of the semester second semester. How to do the IA. Yeah, and a bunch of in-class training. I think you were here. Actually, you might not have been here for that in-class training, but that's something that we're working on. And I'll give you in-class training so that you'll come up with. Okay. Yeah. Just as a reminder, and I put it up there, I'd like you to print out a copy of your revised first draft. Got that? Okay. Yeah, paper 2, paper 3 training is pretty straightforward. Write an essay. Paper 1 training, we'll get to that next semester. That's actually the easiest of all the trainings. It's very doable. Okay. You guys got any questions? I'm like, how many of you are availing yourself? Make sure you pull your thing back up there. There you go. Of the opportunity to like chow down while you're learning. Okay. Yeah. Next period, I've got a class in here, and I'm over there eating my lunch. Yeah, because 11:50 is a long time to wait when you get up really early. Yeah, and there's no like snack break times and so forth. I get up at 5. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, do you guys have any questions? Where we're at? Okay. You guys have been checking the Google Classroom. Okay. And emails and clarification. And if you still have some concerns about like, even after I give some general training and so forth, I think mostly what happened if you didn't do a great job in your very first IA, it was because there was just crazy things going on. I mean, we were in the midst of a quarantine, still are, and it was just kind of problematic. And maybe you did work on it over the summer. I know there were other competing things going on, extended essay and just summer. But now is the time to do that because the payoff is going to be really good for you. You do a nice job in your history IA, you will put yourself into a great position to get college credit and things like that. Okay? So, questions? All right. Shall we get to a conflict? What? Notes? Yeah, let's do this. All right, come on. All right, notes. I know, so we just got to go, 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 go. All right. That's good. All right. And I got to remember, like, not to pick it up where I left off with the other class, because I haven't gotten through all this stuff with you guys. Are you ready? India and Pakistan will fight a series of wars. You got your handout in front of you? Can you tell me, Frank, what were the years that the wars took place between India and Pakistan? That was one. What was another one? That was another. What was another one? Very good. So those 3 conflicts are officially part of the Indo-Pakistan war thing going on there. Got it? Right? So, interestingly enough, Pakistan didn't even exist as a recognizable country until, write this down, 1947. So it was like within the first days of their existence as a country, Pakistan was at war with India. Okay, India. By the way, before I forget, can you email me the 11th grade notes? Do you have those? Because I've got some 11th graders that want to, and I'll forward it on to them. Thank you. And yet, here's the deal. India, as a country, as an independent country, came into existence in 1947. So India and Pakistan, as independent countries in 1947, one of the first things they do, they go to war with each other. And you're like, what the heck? What is going on with this? We need to back it out. You ready? Before we get into any of these periods of wars and things like and so forth, sometimes we got to go back to understand the earlier history as to why these countries came into a condition of conflict. I'll tell you one thing, and I think we talked about it very briefly last time. Those countries, India and Pakistan, lately are not serious about fighting each other in a big war. Not like these other wars. Why not? They got weapons. They got nuclear weapons. And there's an interesting thing. We see this in the Soviet Union and the United States during the Cold War. When both sides have nuclear weapons, both sides are like, I don't know if I really want to like go nuclear on them because they could go nuclear on us, and then it's like, goodbye. I was reading a little thing today and so forth, and I'm like, I really don't like that when that happens, but I'm not surprised that they are doing that. North Korea, do they want nuclear weapons? Of course they do. Do they want the ability to launch intercontinental ballistic missiles to do long-range attacks against their foes? Yeah, they've been working on that. Here's another one. They also want to, and we'll see as we go through this semester, and even more interesting innovation, the first nuclear weapon was put into an airplane and flown over the target and dropped. Later, both sides will develop intercontinental ballistic missiles that can be launched from land long distances to blow up in other countries. There's an even more interesting innovation technologically that North Korea apparently is trying to work on too. And that is keeping your nuclear missiles really hidden very well in a submarine in an ocean and moving them here, there, and everywhere so that you can pull up a little closer. Submarine-launched missiles. The United States has them. The Soviets will develop them as well during the Cold War. North Koreans are working toward that. Not surprised. I mean, any country, if you're trying to develop nuclear weapons and the capability of using them effectively, that's what you do. Okay? So, write it down. When we get to the end of this India-Pakistan thing, one thing that's arguably going to help calm things down is the presence of nuclear weapons on both sides, because it raises the stakes. And things are better than they were before. But let's get to the long history. You ready? When you look at the long history of this part of the world, Southern Asia, as opposed to Eastern Asia, China, Korea, Japan, and so forth, Southern Asia, not too far from the Middle East, Southern Asia has a great civilization that occurred in among the early civilizations. And it's not known as the Pakistan civilization, it's known as the Indian civilization. Because, write this down, Pakistan and India essentially come from the same or similar history with some differences, as we'll get to. Okay? And here's what you need to know about India throughout history. It's great. Civilization, development of really cool things. Like in the area of math. Can anyone tell me what was developed in India that was a major advance in the mathematical field? And don't say nothing, because otherwise you're right. Nothing is right. It's a major innovation. Nothing. What symbol do you use to signify nothing? Zero. What does a zero look like in Roman numerals? It doesn't exist, yeah. In India, they developed the numerals, like what we use, 0, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and so forth. It works out much better than the Roman numerals, right? And Europeans are like, those work so much better. Let us use these numerals that we call Arabic numbers. You're like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem like they're giving full credit to the people who introduced nothing, 0, and 1, 2, 3. Why do the Europeans call them Arabic numbers? So if you get a teacher that teaches you something, and then you might say, oh, I learned it from that teacher. But in fact, that teacher might have learned it from somebody else. The Arabs learned the number system from India, and then they taught it to the Europeans. Because the Arabs were trading with India, and then the Arabs were also trading with the people to the west. Oh, there were all kinds of things going on. I mean, if you look at history at various different time periods, you got trade, you got fighting, you got various different things. Okay? So, there was trade. And there's also fighting. It's a mix. But the traders are always like, can we not have any more fighting? I can make so much more money when we're not fighting. So put this down. One of the things that's amazing about India, though, if you compare it to other like civilizations and so forth, there's something that really stands out. couple of things. I mean, culture is amazing, and the cooking and language and so forth. Fascinating thing, I'm going to have you write this down, is religion. Religion in India is a big deal. If you were to go to India even still today and so forth and look around, you will see lots of religious influences. Shrines all over the place. The place is just steeped historically in religion, and still so now. We're going to have you identify what two major religions have origins in India. As one, and the other is Hinduism. Very good. You can write that down. Hinduism, Buddhism. Anybody know which came first? Nope. It's the other one. Hinduism, okay? Hinduism, Buddhism, all right? So here, I mean, some of you guys are like, I know something about Hinduism and Buddhism and so forth. I know a little something. You know a little something. What do you know? Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Right? Yes, okay, let's get into it. Let's talk about Hinduism first. India is the birthplace of Hinduism, and there are a number of Hindus that look and say the most important place on the entire planet is India. It is the home of Hinduism, and that is what it should be. It should be Hindu. Other people are like, other people can live here, no big deal, and so forth. But there are some Hindus that are very much like, this should be a Hindu nation. All right? So anyway, here's the deal. Basics of Hinduism. I think you know this. Two choices. Monotheistic religion or multiple deities. Multiple deities. Okay, write that down. It's not monotheistic. When you think of monotheistic, you're like Judaism, Islam, Christianity. There. Those are the three main monotheistic, one God kind of religions. In the East, you end up having more of a multiplicity. Okay? Lots of different deities within the Hindu belief system. Another key thing. All right? And that is what happens after you die. What happens after you die is you go to heaven or hell? Is that it? Reincarnation. Write that down. Some of you guys are like, I know about that. Reincarnation. You go through, according to Hinduism, a repeated cycle of life and death and life and death and life and death and life and death. Okay? And you could, depending on what you did in your life, you could move up because there are levels. It's a caste system. And you go, I know about caste system. I know the basics about that. It's like going up, going down. I was like, could you imagine being in school and go, you didn't have a very good year. No, you're not going to repeat. You're going to go back a grade. You're like, no! I mean, but that's kind of how it is. Here's the deal. Within Hinduism, you are born into a particular caste. Now, some people are like, well, I'm middle class, I'm upper class, I'm lower class, or whatever. It's even more so than class. I mean, if you're lower class economically in this country, you make a lot of money, you're going to be upper class because you got the money to do it. But in Hinduism, the idea is you're born into a caste. And you will stay in that caste your entire lifetime. Got that? And if you follow the rules of what you were supposed to do according to that caste and so forth, then in your next life, you go up. If you don't, you go down, right? And so if something bad happens to somebody, it's actually even filtered into American culture. If something bad happens to somebody and you're like, well, that was justified. Maybe something they did in this life or a previous life. It's it just slaps you. It catches up to you. Karma slap. Yeah, it's like karma catches up to you. The idea of karma within Eastern belief systems and so forth is that all the behaviors and actions and so forth are going to factor in one way or another in this lifetime or the next. Okay, so those are some of the basics. So, interesting question. Anybody know what is the name of the lowest caste? I mean, it's the untouchables. That's what they were called historically, untouchables. I mean, those people were working in the most difficult jobs with human waste and human death and kinds of things. It's not much fun. If you go to India today, they don't use untouchable. Dalit is the lowest caste. What about the highest caste? Actually, see if you know this one. I'll give you two choices. The highest caste, the top caste in the Hindu belief system, two choices. One, the top politicians and generals. The second, priests. How many guys say priests? It is. It's priests. It's the Brahmins. They're at the top. Here's the thing. In India, religion is so important that the most important people in India throughout history are the priests. Religion matters perhaps more than who's in charge, who physically is in charge of the government, the king, any of the military, and so forth. Which is an interesting thing, because other parts of the world, you're like, it's good to be king. The king is at the top. But let me tell you this about history. India got invaded successfully many times. Write that down. This is an important feature of Indian history. It might help explain some of the attitudes that develop in India over time. India was invaded many times historically, successfully. Now let me go over to the map here. If you look geographically, you look at India and go, well, it's got some natural geographic protection, like the Himalayan mountains. Those are a really good natural protection against, say, invasion from China. And in fact, the Himalayan mountains are a good protection of invasion from China. And the ocean on either side, unless you're like facing some country that's got a really powerful navy that can end up on your shores, Britain, we'll get to those guys later, the oceans are going to be good. But put this down. India, from the northwest, was invaded successfully many times over its history. The invasions came, and at various different times, whatever government was in charge of India or parts of India, at times they weren't able to withstand the invaders. And the invaders just crashed like waves over the shore of India and took over. But India had an interesting response, because some of the invaders, their religion wasn't as strongly held as was the Indians who they conquered. Listen again. The invaders came, like for example, the Huns, or descendants of the Mongols. They might come and invade and conquer, and then they're like, okay, we're in charge. And the people in India are like, yes, you're in charge. In charge of the government and the military. And yet, what matters most? Religion. What matters most? Religion. In fact, those leaders would look around and go, well, tell me about this religion. And the Brahmins would plug them in, convert them to Hinduism, and plug them in, not in the top caste, the Brahmin caste, but in a lower caste. But still, one pretty high up. Got that? That happened many, many, many years in Indian history. Just to give you the Buddhist story real quick, because Buddhism also started in India, but write this down. When we look at India during the modern time period, there's not that many Buddhists that live there. There's not that many. Buddhism starts in India, and then it spreads and becomes very popular. Southeast Asia, China, Korea, Japan. Actually, just off the coast of India is the island of Ceylon, which is the country of Sri Lanka. That's a very Buddhist country. But as I mentioned, like Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Thailand, and so forth, lots of Buddhists there. Here's a quick primer on Buddhism. Does Buddhism believe in reincarnation as well? Anybody know? No. Yes. A man known as the Buddha, historically, came to teach the people and converted many, not all, to Buddhism. And he taught a path away from death and life and death and life and death and life and death and life. That anyone at any level of the caste system, including the lowest caste, didn't have to be reborn into the higher, finally get through there. They could achieve enlightenment, nirvana, one with the universe, in their lifetime. So guess which castes Buddhism actually was fairly popular among? The higher ones? Not so. Yeah, the lower ones, yeah. And so the higher ones actually put up a fair amount of resistance. They're like, don't be telling me about your whole Buddhism thing and so forth. You just move along right now. So it's an interesting difference. There's some similarities, but there's some key differences. I mean, and I'm generalizing. There's a lot more nuance and so forth and interesting things about both those religions, but that is one of the key differences. In Buddhism, you can go to the afterlife, one with the universe right away. Although there are, within Buddhism, it's interesting because it's like, But some of the great Buddhist leaders in the world today are reborn Buddhist teachers. What? Why would they be reborn? Like the Dalai Lama is reborn after many, many life cycles according to Buddhism. The idea is they're a teacher. They keep coming back as a help, as a guide to other people. Got that? Anyway, so they're doing that in a sense because of like a sacrificial type thing. Yeah. You get monks within various different religious things, and so yeah, there are a lot of Buddhist monks. Okay, people who will focus on that, chanting and prayer and so forth and service and so on. All right. Now, I have to tell you about some invaders that came into India. Oh gosh, when was that? I want to say like the 1400s. Okay? And these are the Mughals. M-U-G-H-A-L-S. The Mughals. Let me tell you about the Mughals. Two things about them. One, maybe not as important, some of them descendants of Mongols. Okay, fine, so whatever. I don't think I had that on there, but I'm going to have you write it down. M-U-G-H-A-L. Mughals. And I'm going to give you another word that will help you to understand. Because the thing that's most important about these invaders from the northwest, M-U-G-H-A-L. These invaders from the northwest, they had converted to a religion. And they felt very strongly about their religion. And their religion is Islam. The Mughals are Muslims. Do you understand that? So if I were to, actually, I didn't think about this for the other class. If I were to point to one of the greatest pieces of architecture in India, if you were to go to Delhi, anybody know what that building is? It's a tomb. It's the Taj Mahal. It is a tomb for the wife of a great Mughal leader, Muslim leader. The architectural style is very much in the Islamic style. Some of the greatest leaders in Indian history are Muslim leaders. That is a Muslim place of burial for the wife of a Mughal ruler. Some of the Mughal rulers are like, the Hindus are here, that's chill. I'm not going to overlord them. But put this down. I need to stress this with the other classes much because I don't think I stressed it as much, but it really is important. Other Mughal leaders were like, we're Muslim, and we're not going to be like fitting into your Hindu caste system thingy. We're going to do the Muslim thing. And some of them looked around and were like, there's too many Hindu temples in India, and they were tearing down Hindu temples, which really upsets who? The Hindus. Yeah, I mean, Hindus are like, what are you doing? You're coming into our country. You're not like the old invaders who maybe could care less about religion. The new invaders, some of them were very much like, Islam. So there's going to be, from that time period, some tensions. You're like, what do you mean tensions? What are you saying, Mr. Hanson, that the wars between India and Pakistan have something to do with like conflicts that go way back between Hindus and Muslims? Yeah. Because guess which one of those two countries, India or Pakistan, is predominantly Hindu? And guess which one is predominantly Muslim? Pakistan. And that's going to help explain some of those unresolved tensions feeding into modern conflict. It's ironic because the Mughals irritated so many Hindus that eventually a complete outsider is going to be able to take advantage of that and gain control directly or indirectly of all of India. Because some of the Hindus are like, I'd rather be under the control of some outsider than this leaning on us Muslim rulers. And it's the British. Write it down. The British. The British established control in North America, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and the jewel of the British crown is India. Beginning in the 1700s, actually beginning a little bit before the 1700s, but completed by the end of the 1700s, Britain will gain control of India. You got that? And when will they wrap it up toward the end of the 1700s? It's complicated, but yeah, I mean, it's like when I show you the map here, you're like, what is this? These colorful areas are British controlled directly. Look at this yellow. This is kind of interesting. The yellow areas are princely states. Like what? They're under the control of local princes, but they report to the British. That make sense? Okay? So ultimately, all of that is under the direct or indirect control of Britain. Question. And when are the British going to hang on to these territories until? End of World War II. Specifically, India, Pakistan, 1947. But at the height of the British Empire, they've got India. Queen Victoria of England will also be known as the Empress of India. There's like this island, England, Britain, is going to be in control of India. Interesting. And in the midst of that, you're going to have some people that will say, we actually want India to be under the control of Indians. And then an interesting question comes up. Well, if India was ever under the control of Indians, which Indians would it be? Would it be like the last time with the Mughals who built the Taj Mahal? The Muslims? Are they going to be in charge? Or the Hindus? Or what? What's it going to be? Very interesting. And there were people pushing for Indian independence beginning in the late 1800s and throughout the early 1900s, and some of them are pretty well known. You look at the notes and you can see one there already. Who's that one guy? Who is that one guy? This guy right here, Mahatma Gandhi. You heard of Mahatma Gandhi? He's the peace leader. Yeah. It's like, he's the guy who Martin Luther King Jr. looked to for examples of how to put together an effective movement to try and persuade people to come on board your goal. Martin Luther King Jr.'s proposal was more civil rights, particularly for African Americans in this country. Gandhi's argument was Indian rule for Indians. Bye-bye, Britain. You can go now.